This is Dale Matthews, and I'm joined by Mike Jones on this Friday evening. Hello, Mike.
Hello, it's Friday,
Yes, it is. Yes, it
which
is.
means
And,
nothing because we're going to be doing this every single day.
oh, I think it means a lot, but okay. All right. So we'll disagree. We'll agree to disagree about that. Oh, it's terrific. It's
Okay.
Friday. Okay. All right. So, since today is a rather interesting day in state politics, although we concentrate on local politics, I thought that we'd tell you just a little bit about the resignation or the announced resignation. He hasn't officially done it quite yet, of the governor. And so I got some material together from the Associated Press, which is a timeline, just one last look at the end of Governor Kitzhaber. It turned out where the first part of this, I'll look at my notes briefly, October 8th, the Willamette Week. The Willamette Week is a weekly newspaper, Willamette Week, and unlike what the Grants Pass City Council ruled, oh, if you're just an associate member of the Oregon Newspaper Publishers Association, that doesn't really mean anything, except the Willamette Week is an associate member because it's a weekly, and in addition to that, they're a Pulitzer Prize-winning newspaper. Oh, that's nice. Okay, but the Willamette Week announced on October 8th that the governor's fiancée, well, okay, girlfriend, Sylvia Hayes, had used taxpayer resources to aid her green business and dealings with the state and with others. Now, most of their criticism centered on the fact that Sylvia's parents had named her CYLVIA instead of SYLVIA, and anyone who spells their name so badly deserves criticism. Okay, October 9th, Hayes admitted the next day, admitted to a newspaper here in Oregon that in 1997, she was paid $5,000 to marry an 18-year-old Ethiopian man, I'm not kidding, who wanted to stay in the United States. And
Right.
related story, in 1997, it turns out that Simon Hare was an 18-year-old Ethiopian immigrant.
Okay.
But
Oh, yes.
he insists that there's no relationship between the two stories, even though he's been seen several times in local bars with Sylvia Hayes.
I want to see his birth certificate.
A couple of days later, on October 13th, Hayes acknowledged that in that same year, as her marriage to the 18-year-old Ethiopian immigrant, she purchased property in Washington State, and intended to use it for marijuana growing,
Right.
although it was not legal in the state of Oregon at the time, but that the scheme never materialized. Although the person that sold her the property said, "Oh, yes, it did." So there was a question at that time about whether or not she was involved in questionable activities.
Right.
Okay, so October 23 of this year, Dennis Richardson said that the U.S. attorney should investigate whether Hayes had violated the law and getting the state to help her with her promoting her business.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, Simon Hare's largest contributor, one of his two largest contributors, was talking with him about having drones at the Illinois Valley Airport, and then, as we know, subsequently, Simon Hare never reported or asked, said, maybe I should recuse myself from this decision. So is it possible that he was using his position to promote not only that, but also his favorite charity, which should get free rent and free utilities here in Josephine County? Maybe we'll never know. So it was just about a week later that the general election took place. That would be on Tuesday, November 4th. On Friday, November 7th, that's the point. See, the election happened on the 4th. At
Yes.
the end of that week, that's when the Oregon Ethics Commission said, maybe we should look at the governor,
Yeah.
the newly elected governor, and find out what's going on here. Well, thank you very much, Oregon Ethics Commission. Just Johnny on the spot. January 30th this year, it was a Friday, Kitzhaber said he would not resign, but acknowledged that there were legitimate questions about his girlfriend and promised that she will have no future role in his administration. No future role, so I guess that must mean that she did have a role in his administration, his girlfriend.
Right.
Okay. Then, a few days later, on February 4th, that's this month, the editorial board of the Oregonian, which happens to be the state's largest newspaper, called for the governor to resign. There's got to be more to it than this. Come on, guys. It cannot just be this, because who hasn't had a goofy girlfriend, except for some of the women in the audience? And, well, I'm not, not saying there's anything wrong with that. But that the editorial board of the Oregonian felt that the governor could no longer lead the state. A couple of days later, Kitzhofer's office released public records confirming that he had fired his former communications director because she had criticized his girlfriend at a staff meeting.
Yeah, don't do that.
No criticizing of girlfriends at staff meetings.
Don't be talking about my old lady.
Well, part of the controversy about that was that she had indicated that this was damaging the governor's credibility, and he was having none of it. As it turns out, she was right.
Yeah.
Then that was on a Friday. The following Monday, Ellen Rosenblum, who is the Attorney General of the state, said that she had launched a criminal investigation.
Wow.
Of the governor. Now, your girlfriend pretending that she works, well, apparently she was partly representing the governor, because he said she will no longer be out there, as part of our administration. That's not enough for a criminal investigation. What is going on here, which leads to my theory, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, that the reason there's been so much controversy and this time, and no, I'm going to, I'm not going to, I'm going to, I'm not going to, is he was holding out for the best deal he could make, which in my personal opinion, not the opinion of BadCounty.com necessarily, but my personal opinion is he was waiting to have the powers that be in the Democrat Party and also in the state agree that they would stop the investigation.
Well, and and you might be right. That's a solid theory. The only issue that I would have with that is there's going to be a lot of people wondering, okay, what's going on with that whole thing that happened there? Because there's a lot of stuff there. It's not just the girlfriend. There's a bunch of people involved in this situation, and influence peddling, and all kinds of things. So I hope that I am right in
criminal investigation, Mike. Criminal investigation.
Yes, criminal. That's the one reason why I don't think it's going to go away. You might be right. I mean, we are a democratic state, and they don't like to pursue, justice.
Look,
although they say they do.
Even when Keith Heck decided to push me around, just about pushed me out the door. He pushed me 4 times. Of course, he's got a secretary. He never touched him. Even though Keith Heck was saying, I know we're breaking the law, and I don't care, and said that 3 times, breaking the Open Public Meetings Law is not good, but it's not criminal.
Right.
Text messaging, sex messaging an 18-year-old, well, in some states it's actually encouraged, sex messaging an 18-year-old as a drunken commissioner is not criminal. It's despicable, but it's not criminal. So this is a little bit different. Why would Ellen Rosenblum open and announce it to the public, open a criminal investigation?
Well, because there's some fire where the smoke came from. That's why.
I would think so. Well, fortunately, we have, as tonight's guest, we're not always going to have a guest. I mean, Mike is every night's guest. But fortunately, we have a guest tonight that will be able to answer every one of these questions in great detail. But all we have is a picture of him, and his name is Bill Hunker, and he's here to... No, wait, that's not why he's here. Well, hello, Bill. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I was not set ready for your questions, however, but let's go ahead.
Well, Bill's actually here on a matter of import to us here in Josephine County. Now, you better be sitting down when Bill starts telling you these facts and figures, because
It's
if
going to
you
shake your mind up.
it's going to shake your mind up, and the people who have the most to lose from tonight's discussion with Bill Hunker will be those who are pushing for the levy. Because Bill has done his research, he's got facts and figures, he's got charts and graphs, and Bill's going to share with us a number of things about the crime rate in Josephine County and Grants Pass. Bill, why don't you explain to us the research you've done and share some of that with us, please, sir?
Well, thank you. I took an interest just because I like to go back to to square one and find out what are the real figures here that we're dealing with, because we hear an awful lot that crime is rampant and all the bad guys are around every turn, and so I wanted to see what the shifts had been, and so I actually have done all the way back to 1995. So I've got 18 years of how the crime breaks out in the county, both Grants Pass and the county of Josephine. And but the first thing I want to say, just as a setup, because a lot of people are not aware of this, and this all comes from the uniform crime reporting that is compiled out of the FBI statistics yearly by, or each state does it for their state. But if you take the United States, and we go back to 1970, and look at a graph, and Mike, I think you have that one, crime per thousand per year.
It's up now.
Okay, the red line is Oregon, the blue line is the United States. And what you see there, if we were able to read the numbers real well, is in Oregon, our high crime, the highest years of crime was 86, 87, 88. The 86 and 88 were almost the same, 88 slightly higher. So if you lived through 1988 in Oregon, you just barely made it, because that was the high crime of all time for as long as they kept records here.
Hey,
it
Bill?
Is now,
Bill?
Yes.
Wasn't that also coinciding with some of our greatest number of law enforcement officials on the road?
That would, I would have to look at Oregon in general, but if you look at starting in 95, which is the first time that Oregon State put their records on computer, which I was able to get, is back to 95. So I don't go all the way back to 88. But we can talk in a second about from 95 on how that was affected. But as you can see, from 88 on out to 2013, the line is going down, both for the U.S. as it happened in 1991 was the all-time high for United States crime. So we have a decreasing crime every year. Oregon is real pleased to say in their last report that for the 10th year running, we have lowered crime lower than the year before for 10 years running in all three categories of crime. So crime has been going down for 25 to 30 years, and we're at half the crime nationally and Oregon statewide that we all lived through back in the 80s and 90s.
Now hold on just a second.
So we move on.
Hey, Mike, hold on a second. Okay, I'm sure Mike has something to say about this, and I sure do. Mm-hmm. If you go on to KJO's website, KJO, or if you listen on their news, there's nothing in there, well, except for occasionally the commissioners might appoint someone to the Parks Board or something. But there's nothing on there except crime, 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 crime. It's the crime news. It's nothing but the crime news. And when the Courier hired a good new reporter, they put her immediately on law enforcement. I mean, that's where they're putting all of their effort into talking to us and telling us how we're all going to hell in a handbasket because of the rampant crime. And the previous sheriff said, "Oh, now that we don't have the kind of funding that I need, my gosh, people are going to get on buses and they're going to have tourists coming here, and the whole tour, it's a crime tourism business, and they're all going to come and move here, and they're going to rob everybody." In fact, the sheriff had said that it was a horrendous number, this huge number of cars are being broken into, homes are being, he later had to retract all those numbers because they were false. He admitted they were false. He looked at them and, oh, well, I don't know why they're so false. So here we're hitting with this constant barrage of how things are just awful, but your statistics show us what?
Yep. My statistics show that there's been almost a flat line of crime split between Grants Pass and the county at 20-80%. That's way before not way before, but several years before they had a jail, back when they were fully funded, starting in 95 all the way on down to 2012. The split stays almost every year the same. There was one year we took a 25% part of the crime in the county, and the city took their 75. But working backwards, we were 20% in the county and 80% in 12. We were 20.1% in 11 versus 79.9%. And same thing with 10, 79.5 versus 20.5. 2009, 79, 20. 2008. I mean, all the way through, it has been about an 80-20 split all the way back to 1995. And it doesn't vary that much. So what you're saying is that back when we had full funding as they ever gave the department, which I don't suppose anyone ever has the full funding they'd love to have, but they had adequate funding. They had ONC funds. We didn't even have a jail, but then we got the jail. Everything was hunky-dory. And we go on, and the 20-80 split continues all the way through. And so we have not seen in 12, 11, 10, it's straight 20-80 split. So I don't see where there is a shift in our crime stats.
Right.
It just hasn't happened. And we're being sold propaganda for a variety of reasons, and some of them are a little ludicrous when we look at, one of the things I've heard comical to me is that, the people out in the county, they come into the city to commit the crime. And I'm thinking, this isn't making any sense to me, because you're asking for extra money for police to go out in the county, because if you have that really, the police presence really cuts down on crime. So you go to the city, which is fully funded at the same rates and levels that Medford and Jackson County are. They have a response rate of about 4 minutes. And they're pretty proud of that, and I think it's great. So if you're in the city and you call 911, the response rate's about 4 minutes. In the county, it varies greatly, but about between 20 and 40 minutes, depending on where a deputy is. So I'm thinking to myself, if I were a criminal, do you think I'd go down to Grants Pass to commit crime with a 4-minute response rate and 55 cops, and then I'd go, as opposed to the county with a 40-minute response rate and 2, 3 cops? It doesn't make sense. So no, there isn't. People are not coming in from the county to the city to commit the crimes. And if there are some that do that, which I'm sure some have happened, there's just as many going out of the city to the county.
Well, let's look at that. Let's look at that graph again. Especially, I'm interested in the last few years of the red part. Now, the red part is like in the county, right? The red part's in the county, and the blue part's in Grants Pass. When you look at the county from 2006 forward, when we started having all of our funding problems, every year is the same.
Yeah, just about the same. And I don't know when we actually. 12 was when everybody ended up saying, "Oh, we're falling off the cliff." In 12, but back in 6 and 7, there wasn't the noise about that. ONC funds are going to be going away and so forth. But by and large, we've just held steady there. And as you can see in Grants Pass, the crime has gone down appreciably since 1997. If you even look to today, it's down appreciably. So they've been doing a good job, but so has the county been doing a good job right along with him. Like I say, it holds it to 20-80% all the time.
Well, let me ask Mike a question. Mike, wouldn't it be easier to sell this levy if those blue spikes for the city and the red ones for the county were going off the top of the chart? Wouldn't it be easier to sell a levy if they had any statistics to back them up?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, you know, another notable thing here, if you notice, from 2006 on out, not only are they pretty much flat, there are slight variances in there, but they are record low in this chart. So, you know, this idea that you know, this is Dodge City, that's just clearly not true.
Yeah. No, it isn't at all. And you hear various things like, well, you know, people aren't reporting the crimes because nobody would come out. I cannot imagine an important crime, certainly if we want to start at the ridiculous end, if anyone has been killed or killed someone and no one reports it. That would be highly unusual. All the way down to somebody calls in about their missing Tonka toy and somebody says, well, I think that's a crime. There is no doubt in both the city, county, and that holds for Jackson and Douglas and for our county, that property crimes have gone up. And what you're seeing in the blue going up there in 10, 11, 12, that's primarily driven by property crimes. And property crimes, if they're not reported, it would surprise me, because usually in a property crime, for most people, they have insurance. And the reason they report is so that they can say, we have reported our crime, and here's our case number, and so I can get my insurance reimbursed.
Right.
So for people not to report their property crimes would be a little illogical if they had insurance.
Indulge me for a second, gentlemen. This graph that we're looking at right now, if this is true, then doesn't this blow the lid off of the past several levy attempts?
I would think that these should have been hauled out, 12, 11 years ago?
Yeah. When
they first started? Yeah, and I can digress here. We could go to one other I've put in. I don't know how our time is, but I've had the same question, Dale, about why have you know, we're laying 9, shooting 10 on this turn down, and 8 of those have been in a row, and it all started when the jail came online. They gave the jail one-year levy to operate after it was built, but after that, they never gave them any more money. And I'm saying that doesn't make sense to me, that they built this huge jail, which, by the way, is way beyond what we should have compared with the rest of the state. But they did that, and I think the people understood they were being taken for a ride on the jail, and they just said, you know what, we're not gonna fund this. We're not gonna be a part of this anymore.
Hey,
you guys,
Bill,
you know, you built this huge facility, and you want us to. And you know, we've never used it. 180 beds is the most I've ever heard have been used in that jail. We built 262 beds. We spent 30% of our money to build it, 30% to maintain it, 30% in interest that has never, ever had any use at all.
Now
and you say,
I have that
why
chart
did that happen?
I have that chart up right now, Bill, with the number. It says no county in Oregon with a higher population than Josephine County has a higher ratio of jail beds to population.
Now, the one on the left is Josephine County. That's Josephine County.
Yep.
And somewhere in the middle is Lane County and Jackson County. They're like 4th and 5th from the right side. The one on the left is Josephine County, and look at it compared with all the rest of those counties. This is the ratio of jail beds to population.
Yep.
And
And you can't say anything about any of these on how many they actually have prisoners in the beds, but you can say, what did they build as a facility for the population they had in front of them? And what's interesting is Lane County just finished a levy after I think it was 12 or 13 times in getting a brand new jail. And you can be sure that after 12 or 13 times, they probably did what was needed and could get away with for their population. And they have a 1.52 beds per 1,000 population. But Lane County has 356,000 people. We have 82,000. And they just built. It isn't like, well, they built a long while ago and they're running out of space. They built within the last year to 2 years. So I don't know. We were sold a bill back in '98, and then they built in 2000. But as soon as they built and started going, they never ever gave them another safety levy. And I think the people said, you know what? We give you something, you take us for a ride. We're just not going to be a part of it anymore.
Yeah. Well, these numbers are going to help in that regard. Now, also, it's notable, because we talked about this a little bit before the show, that the Josephine County number, we are not staffing for 3.16 beds now. We are staffing or occupying in the 1.5 level, the same as Lane County. Is that right?
That's right. That's right. When we cut having never used the 262, they went down to, the levy wants 160 open. They've been at 120, and actually Sheriff Daniel lowered it to 90. I don't know if that got rescinded, but when he first got in, he lowered it to 90. And 90 would actually be a little less than that, because 120 is a 1.5.
No, but the important thing about this is, guys, is that even if we're about the same as Lane County, you're telling me that with the amount of money that we're spending, and with the out of control crime rate that we have about the same number of people in jail as they do in Lane County?
We have beds. No, I don't. Incarceration numbers, this does not reflect that. This reflects beds per population. So whether or not those beds are ever filled in Lane or us, unknown.
No. Here's what I'm saying.
No,
we have 3.16 beds, but because of staffing and other reasons, we're only centering around the population in those beds around the area of Lane and Jackson. Okay, but what that means then is, that's what you guys just said, what that means then is that we're putting people into beds about at the same rate as Lane County?
Yes.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
and Lane County has more than 3 times the population of this county.
Right, and this is a ratio, but that's right. And they also have pretty good police, is what my understanding is.
Yeah, I have not heard that Lane has had a safety issue, and nor has Jackson. Jackson is a fully staffed sheriff's department and city, and they're top of the heap. Jackson County is right near the top, and I think in 13, they considered that Medford was either first or second most crime-ridden city in all of Oregon.
But here's the point: we're spending so much less, right? We're not spending enough. There's never going to be enough. But we're keeping a pace. This is the perfect example. Did you remember, Mike, when I'd been talking earlier about the time I had talked with the DA, and he came up to me and said, well, why are you against this? And I started telling him about it, and he got this look on his face and kind of like backed off, like it was just rocking his world. He had never heard these things. This does the same thing to me. This graph right here does the same to me. Crimes per 1,000 population. Okay, the reason why is, look, I'm going to fight against you guys here for a moment. Okay. When I see something that runs so counter to everything that I've heard, I start wondering, oh, okay, really? I mean, I know and I trust you guys. But anytime I see this kind of stuff, which is so the opposite of everything that I've been told, I start wondering, well, is this possible that these guys at BadCounty.com, and I'm part of it, are just manipulating the figures, and this can't possibly be right, all these figures, and this can't be right. It can't be right. Please tell me this can't be right, can it?
Well, I would love to have you sit beside me. I download these from the Oregon Uniform Crime Reporting yearly databases, and I try to double check every single number I put down. And you know, there could be a stray number that was wrong, but certainly in the overall, I would say it's at 99% of copy. So yes, if you want to go through, this is all available on the internet. This isn't magic coming to me. The Oregon crime reporting is available to everybody, and it's a download, and then you can look at a lot of the detail. I mean, they tell time of day and what crimes are where and in what areas and so forth. This is kind of the larger summaries that I'm working with here.
Bill, one of the interesting stats that you told me before the show is that compared to Jackson County, and I forget the crime breakdown, you said property, behavioral, and there was one other.
Personal.
Personal, okay. That in Josephine County, the only spike, per se, in the type of crime is in property crime. Is that correct?
Right. That's correct.
So I mean that sort of indicates to me that you know, if anything, you want to deal with the property crime issue. How about getting some jobs here?
Yeah. We've gone from 14th in the state in property crimes in 2007 to 7th in the state property crimes. But Jackson has moved from 12th to number 3. Number 2. They're second in the whole state for property crimes. Douglas has moved from 18th to 13th, and they're all a 5-year high in Douglas and 5-year high in Jackson for property. We're a 5-year high there. We're, however, at a 5-year low in personal crimes and a 5-year low in behavioral crimes. We're 30th in behavioral crimes for the entire state. Out of 36 counties, this last year, in 12 is the last year I've got, we're 30th. And that is drugs, weapons, liquor, prostitution, DUIs, disorderly conduct. And all the things you think people were out beating each other up.
And that's just inside the Ann Basker with the commissioners. Mike, jump over to your video for a second, would you? I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this guy who I like. You know that I do.
Well, you know what? I got to say that, like Dale was kind of asking here earlier, well, you know, why don't we know this? You know, how come? I mean, this is so new, it's boggling my mind. But essentially, the reason why we're not hearing about this is because it doesn't jive with the narrative here.
It doesn't pay to know the truth.
Yeah.
It doesn't pay these guys to know. Look, we've also recently found, remember when we were talking yesterday or the day before, Mike, we were talking about the fact that when Simon Hare was yesterday, when he was reporting to Moody's, he was having to pick his words so carefully. Do you think the levy is going to pass? Well, many times levies do pass in this world. You know, hopefully in the future we won't have to ask questions like yours ever again. You know, he was being very, very careful with the way he was saying things. And to hear the county commissioners sell the county and how well we're doing to the people from whom they can possibly borrow money in the future. Why, things are looking really rosy here. Why, you know, we're financial. And Eisler and Associates just came back with their report about our financial health. Your financial health is pretty good. Wait a minute. Our financial health is pretty good, and these guys are coming on Wednesday, and Simon Hare is going to tell them how good we're doing. This is not the message that we're getting here. And now we got this message coming in. I'm on fire. Now we got this message is coming in that the crime rate isn't that bad. Hey.
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
Right. Exactly. And you know, Bill and I were kind of speculating a little bit here that, and it jives with this Moody's meeting and the you know, the levy and all of this stuff. That the whole idea here is that they need more money for PERS, more money for pensions, things of this nature, and that's the real driver behind this. And you know, they'll hire more people, and more people being hired means more dues being paid, and the union does better. And I suspect that's the driver behind really most of these pushes for levies.